That night changed everything. Up until then, I had been an observer, piecing together stories, studying cases, trying to find patterns in the chaos. But when my own room vanished, when I felt that void pressing in, whispering to me, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. These rooms don't just disappear, they are taken. For weeks after my experience at the boarding house, I couldn't sleep properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that empty void again. Silent, endless, waiting, and a whisper, that voice, it followed me. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes in moments of silence, just at the edge of my hearing. You weren't supposed to see. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I had been hallucinating, sleepwalking, or having a stress-induced breakdown. But deep down, I knew better. The missing journal and suitcase proved it wasn't just in my head. Something had reached into my reality and erased parts of it. But why? That question haunted me for months. If rooms and places could disappear without a trace, where did they go? More importantly, what happened to the people inside them? I started digging even deeper, pushing past the surface-level cases into the truly disturbing ones. Stories that had been buried, erased from public records, sometimes even wiped from personal memories. There was a family in 1996 who bought a house in Pennsylvania, an old, sprawling home with too many doors and too many hallways. One morning, their 12-year-old son, Daniel, walked into the downstairs bathroom before school. His parents heard the door close, but when they went to check on him 5 minutes later, the door wasn't there. Not just locked, not just stuck, gone. The wall was smooth, seamless, as if no door had ever existed. They tore through old blueprints, searching for any explanation, but every record insisted the bathroom had never been there in the first place. Daniel was never seen. Then there was the case of the apartment in London. A woman named Claire lived on the third floor of a complex for over 3 years. One night, her friend came over to visit, but when she buzzed Claire's apartment, the doorman told her something strange. There's no third floor. At first, she thought he was joking, but when she insisted, he let her check for herself. The elevator buttons only went up to the second floor. There was no staircase leading higher, and when she checked the building's official plans, there had never been a third floor at all. Claire was gone. Her number no longer worked. Her belongings, gone. No records of her lease, no photos, no proof she had ever lived there. Even her family didn't remember her. It was as if she had never existed. But the strangest part? Her friends still remembered. It was then that I realized the truth. The disappearances weren't random. The missing rooms, the lost spaces, the people who were erased. Something was choosing what to take and who got to remember. And I had been marked. The deeper I looked, the more I noticed things shifting around me. Emails disappearing from my inbox, notes I had written vanishing, people forgetting conversations we had just days before. It was as if something was watching me, making sure I didn't get too close. Then I made my final mistake. I reached out to a man named Howard Langley, an independent researcher who had been studying the phenomenon long before me. He had written online about strange disappearances and places that flickered in and out of existence. I sent him an email asking for an interview. The next morning, his website was gone. Every post, every article, wiped clean. His email bounced back. His phone number was disconnected. I searched his name in public records, but there was nothing. Howard Langley had been erased. And that's when I understood. This wasn't just some unexplained phenomenon. This wasn't a glitch in reality. Someone or something was controlling it, and I was getting too close. That's why I'm telling this story now. Because if you've ever walked past a door and felt like it should have been there, if you've ever entered a room and suddenly felt a deep, unsettling wrongness, if you've ever lost something and felt in your gut that it wasn't just misplaced, but removed, then you might be next. Because the truth is, some spaces were never meant to exist. And the more you notice them, the more they notice you. So whatever you do, don't go looking for them. Because if you do, they might just come looking for you. Maybe you've seen it too, a room that shouldn't exist, a door that was there yesterday but isn't today. If you ever find yourself in a place that feels wrong, trust your instincts. And whatever you do, don't stay too long. Because some rooms don't just disappear. They take you with them. For years, I had been researching vanishing rooms, digging into case files, speaking with witnesses, and collecting every scrap of evidence I could find. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened the night I finally saw it for myself. It was late November when I checked into an old boarding house in rural Maine. The place had a history of strange occurrences, whispers of rooms shifting, of guests waking up in unfamiliar spaces, of people disappearing entirely. It was the perfect place to investigate, so I booked a stay under a fake name, hoping to observe whatever was happening without drawing attention to myself. The boarding house was small, with only 6 rooms on the second floor. I was given room 5, a modest but cozy space with an old wooden desk, a heavy oak wardrobe, and a single window overlooking the woods. The moment I stepped inside, I felt something was off. It wasn't anything obvious, just a faint sense of displacement, like the walls weren't quite where they should be. That first night, I stayed up late making notes about the building's layout. I walked the hallways, memorizing every detail, the faded carpet, the flickering overhead light near room 3, the way the corridor seemed slightly too long when I counted my steps. Something about the place didn't add up, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., I woke up, not because of a noise, not because of a nightmare, just awake, instantly. The kind of alertness that feels unnatural, like something had yanked me out of sleep. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. The room was dark, except for the pale sliver of moonlight creeping through the window. Everything looked the same, my suitcase in the corner, my notebook on the desk. But the feeling was stronger now, a deep, sinking sense that something was very, very wrong. I turned to check the time on my phone, but it wasn't on the nightstand. Frowning, I reached toward where I had left it. Except, my fingers met nothing but cold wooden floor. The nightstand was gone. I froze. Slowly, I reached to the other side, feeling for the wall. It should have been right there, just inches away, but my hand met only empty air. That's when I realized I wasn't in my bed anymore. I scrambled to my feet, my breath coming in sharp, panicked gasps. The room was gone. The walls, the furniture, the window, everything had disappeared. I was standing in a vast, silent emptiness. Not just darkness, but absence. Like I had stepped into a place that wasn't meant to exist. I spun around, heart hammering in my chest. There had to be something, some landmark, some way out. But there was nothing. Just an endless void stretching in all directions. Then a sound, a whisper, impossibly close, as if someone was speaking directly into my ear. You weren't supposed to see. My blood ran cold. I turned sharply, but no one was there, just the void. Pressing in, suffocating, pulling at the edges of my mind like it wanted me to forget, to let go. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything snapped back into place. I was back in my room, sprawled on the floor beside my bed, gasping for breath. The nightstand was there. The walls were solid. My phone was sitting right where I had left it. But something was different. My suitcase was gone. So was my journal, the one where I had written down every case of vanishing rooms I had ever investigated. I searched the entire boarding house, but they were nowhere to be found. The landlady claimed she had never seen them. No one had entered my room that night, but I knew the truth. Something had taken me. Something had taken me. And the worst part? I wasn't sure if I had really made it back, or if the world around me had been rewritten in ways I couldn't even begin to understand. Have you ever walked into a room, only to turn around and find it gone? Imagine a door you've stepped through 100 times before, but one day, it simply doesn't exist. No explanations, no logical answers, just vanished. For 10 years, I've investigated these cases, rooms that disappear as if they were never there, and what I discovered will haunt me forever. I first heard about vanishing rooms 10 years ago. Back then, I thought it was just an urban legend, one of those strange, eerie stories that float around on internet forums, whispered by people who claimed to have seen things that shouldn't exist. But the more I read, the more I noticed a pattern. The first case that really caught my attention happened in Chicago. Evelyn Carter, a middle-aged woman who had lived in the same apartment for over 15 years, woke up one morning to find that her bedroom had vanished. She had gone to bed like normal, in a room filled with her belongings, her bookshelf, her nightstand, the old wooden wardrobe she had inherited from her grandmother. But when she woke up, she wasn't in her bed. She was curled up on the floor, in the hallway outside her apartment. Confused, she stood up and turned to open her bedroom door, only to find that it wasn't there. The wall was smooth, freshly painted, like no door had ever existed. At first, she thought she was losing her mind. She ran to her landlord, demanding to know what had happened. But he just stared at her like she was crazy. "What are you talking about?" he said. "You only have one room." Evelyn swore up and down that her bedroom had existed. She had pictures, memories, proof. But when she checked her phone, every picture of her bedroom was gone. Her furniture vanished. Even her old lease, which should have listed the extra room, now only mentioned a single-room apartment. Neighbors who had been in her home before, they didn't remember the room at all. That story alone was strange enough. But when I looked deeper, I found dozens of similar cases. In 1987, a man named Robert Jennings was staying at a roadside motel in Arizona when something impossible happened. He checked in for the night, room 209. The motel clerk handed him the key, and he remembered walking down the dimly lit corridor, finding his room, and falling asleep to the faint hum of the air conditioner. But the next morning, when he stepped out to grab breakfast, he noticed something strange. The hallway felt shorter. He turned to go back, only to realize that room 209 was gone. In its place was a plain, windowless wall. He stormed down to the front desk, demanding to know what happened. The motel owner gave him a confused look. "Sir, we don't have a room 209. Robert insisted. He had the key, the receipt, everything. But when he pulled out the key, the number had changed. Instead of 209, it now read 28, and when he unlocked the door, his belongings were there, but the layout was slightly different. The furniture wasn't in the same place. The bathroom tiles were a different color. Even the paintings on the wall were unfamiliar. It was like the room had been rewritten while he was asleep. In 2013, an office worker in Tokyo swore that he had been working in the same office for 5 years, until one morning, his office simply didn't exist. Where his desk used to be, there was now a janitor's closet. His co-workers didn't remember him ever having an office there. His emails, his records in the system, they had all been erased. And it wasn't just buildings. There were stories of train stations that appeared and disappeared overnight. Forest trails that led to abandoned cabins that weren't there the next day. People who swore they had spent time in places that, according to maps, never existed at all. At first, I told myself it was all just tricks of the mind. Maybe people misremembered things. Maybe buildings were renovated without their knowledge. But then, it happened to me, and I realized the truth was much, much worse.